It's Friday, February 7th, 2025, and Fridays are Ask or Tell Me Anything next on the AM Update. Do you remember this guy? This is Dr. Peter Hotez in early December.
We have some big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st. An H5N1 coronavirus likely brewing, mosquito-transmitted viruses all along the Gulf Coast, dengue and possibly Zika virus, maybe even yellow fever, pertussis cases, whooping cough, measles outbreaks this year. We've got polio that's been in the wastewater in New York State. All that's going to come crashing down on January 21st on the Trump administration.
Things that make you go, I'll get back to that in a minute. But first, there's just a certain point, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this, there's just a certain point where you have to accept the fact that you are covered in vomit, that any step you take will be into at least a little bit of vomit. I found myself in that place last Tuesday night as poor Benjamin, my 3-year-old, woke up in the middle of the night. It was about 10:30 or so, and it looked like he had on the camera on the baby monitor, his pajamas were discolored. I got a text from my beautiful Bella. I was downstairs working on this here podcast. She was reading upstairs in bed. The text that I got from her is, and I quote, "Why is Ben sitting up?" I think I'm going to print off that text and frame it. And on the frame, I'm going to put a little placard that says, "Texts sent moments before disaster." Because the rest of the week, up until this very day, has been an utter disaster in the McIntire household as far as sickness goes. Now, this is definitely, as far as Bella and I are concerned, this is definitely a in sickness and in health sort of week. And we relish, although we wish it wasn't this way, but we relish the opportunity, let's put it that way, to grow closer together even in sickness. But nevertheless, it's been a crazy week. I was up with Ben until 3 o'clock that Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And by about 3 o'clock in the morning, Ben was able to go back to bed and get some good sleep. I slept on the floor beside him again. Covered in vomit. If you're a parent, you've been there before, I'm sure. And got up in the morning. He didn't trust his gut, but he was feeling better. And throughout the rest of the day, he was feeling much better. Everybody was feeling fine on Wednesday. And then I woke up on Thursday. And it was more of the same. The reason I'm bringing this up is not just because I like talking about myself, though that is true. It's because it seems like I've heard from scores of people all over the country sharing the same message, not just about this. We think we had norovirus. We're about 99.9% sure that is the case. We think we had norovirus. And then we got about a day of health when everybody had recovered. The littlest one, Abby, she had an episode with this earlier on Tuesday night, but she was able to sleep the night through. But she kept spiking fevers. She almost went dehydrated at one point when Bella was dealing with this herself on Friday. A lot of people saying, hey, this really knocks you out. Also, right after this, toddler got the flu. Like I said, we had about a day of health. And then Ben started having a dry cough this week. And he's spiked fevers every night this week so far. Upwards of 102, 103 degrees in some cases. Last Friday morning, this is an aside. Last Friday morning, I was starting to feel better, but Bella really needed some rest. I had Abby in tow because she was starting to get a little squirrely that day as well. That was the day that she started to get a little bit dehydrated, but though she was fine. So I was in the kitchen. Ben was eating breakfast. I was holding Abby. I was trying to do some cleaning and stuff, just taking care of my family. And Ben said, "Where's Mama go?" I said, "Well, she's not feeling good, so she's taking a nap. She's laying down." And I said, Mama's not feeling good, just like baby Abby wasn't feeling good, and Ben wasn't feeling good, and Abby and Daddy wasn't feeling good either. And a couple moments passed, and he set his elbow down on the table. He set his head in his hand, And he said just quite matter-of-factly, everybody's sick. And yeah, that's true. That's the title of this episode. Everybody's sick. Why is that? I heard from people from all corners of the country saying this winter has been awful for sickness. Is there something more afoot? And that's where we're going to begin. Cav Cavalier says, have you heard anything about why this year's sick season is so bad? Everyone, everywhere is sick. The stomach bug, norovirus, burned through all 5 of us last week. Now fever and body aches are starting up. I'm in my 30s and I don't recall a sick season this bad in my life. Cav, that's exactly where I'm at. That's exactly where me and my wife are at. We are trying to go back through our memory banks of growing up, trying to figure out, hey, do we remember when we were little being this sick this often? And the answer we came up with is no. Because Cav, as you know, sounds like there's 5 of you in your family, so you have ostensibly 3 kids and a wife at home. You just know this is part of the territory with being a parent, and nobody complains about it. In fact, it's a blessing to some degree for viruses to go through your house because you're strengthening your kids' immune system so that they will be protected from serious disease, hopefully later on in life. That's just a part of life, and it's part of God's miraculous design of our bodies. But this many sicknesses, this many in a row, is actually not good for our immune systems. We have to have time to recover. So what gives? That's exactly what's going on in our household right now. I think as I'm recording this, I'm coming down with what Ben has been dealing with the last couple of days. And it's very strange, too, because I had been free of the worst symptoms of norovirus last week, just like you. Norovirus just went through your house last week, Cav. And now weird body aches, chills, fevers in our household this week, just like you, Cav. What was weird, I'd been free of the worst symptoms for 48 hours. Sunday night comes around, I start getting really cold, and I don't get cold. And I just thought, hey, I've lost 15 pounds from norovirus. Maybe all my fat is gone, and that's why I'm so cold. I went to bed bundled up. That's how cold I was. I woke up 3 hours later in an absolute pool of sweat, and I'm talking about a pool of sweat. I had the flu right before Christmas. You know, I had a bad fever, but I slept right through it. I woke up and I could feel that I had been sweating, but it wasn't like this. This was like dirty 30s, 2-a-days back in high school during football season. Again, more than 48 hours, actually. It was more like 72 hours now that I think about it, after the worst symptoms had subsided from norovirus. This was probably about 5 days after Ben's worst symptoms had subsided, and here he is with the flu or whooping cough or malaria, rabies, something, I don't know. But it's odd. Now, originally I was coming here this morning and I had a top 5 list of my hypotheses on why it seems like this winter for so many people is so much worse with so much worse sickness and so often. Unfortunately, I had to use that list for my day job, which has the rights to my first fruits on content creation. We needed an idea for a segment, so I had to burn that list for that, which I'm happy to do. I will just say this, though. I do not believe what's happening this winter for so many families, and I've heard from scores of them. I don't think it's just random. I don't think that it's just cascading coincidences. I think there are some benign factors at play that are probably exacerbating why people seem to be so sick so often this winter. But man alive, it's the darndest thing. So Cav, you're not alone. Again, I wouldn't even be talking about this if not for so many people having reached out to me over the past week since norovirus and saying much similar things. It's very, very odd. And then I had the thought, even after I'd put together the top 5 hypotheses of why this winter seems so much more sick than other winters, I randomly remembered a clip from MSNBC that aired back in early December of last year. It was what you heard at the cold open montage at the beginning of this here episode. It's one of the chief panic porn stars, Dr. Peter Hotez, who still has an audience for reasons only Jobu knows. Just oddly specifically talking about how all of these diseases are just going to come down on the Trump administration on day one, on January 21st. Now, I don't know. Something nefarious is going on. Something nefarious. Now, it could be something that's latent nefarious, meaning that, this is a few years. It's nothing new nefarious. Something could be happening that is new and that we don't know about. But something is just, to me, feels like it's not right. And at this point, I'm basically open to any possibility. I'm open to listening to any possibility. I saw Sean Davis at the Federalist the other day saying, yeah, the biggest theory that I'm seeing bandied about right now is that Wu Flu 2.0 was released at Trump's inauguration. Maybe. I've seen people talking about chemtrails making everybody sick. I don't know. Probably not. But again, talk to me. Something weird is afoot. All right. So that's how we'll start out today on AM Update. We'll stop talking about sickness. I know that's really appetizing to listen to first thing in the morning. But I don't think there's just only benign, innocent explanations for what's going on this winter with sickness for so many people. Okay, a couple of housekeeping items. I pride myself on the AM Update, on getting right to the content every single morning. Yes, there are some ads at the very beginning of the episode, but I don't waste time, putting in my social handles before we actually get to the meat of the episode every single episode. In fact, recently with the new year and kind of the new format on AM Update, I've been saving anything like Ask or Tell Me Anything, the poll of the week. It's just been a quick reminder at the end of the episode. So maybe that's bad form, but I really like, just especially for a podcast that's designed to be listened to first thing in the morning, get right into the content, get right down to brass tacks, get right down to business. I really pride myself in this podcast in doing that. So on Fridays, Monday through Thursdays episodes, it's Baroque. It's very Mozart. There's a formula. I stick to that formula, with the exception of Wednesday's episode when we did a bit on ending racism. But for the most part, I stick to that formula, and I stick to it as close as I possibly can. Fridays are more like jazz, where I can just meander wherever I want. You may have noticed with the longer episodes of the AM Update over the last few weeks, and I'm enjoying doing them. They're taking more time, but I feel like it's a better experience. I feel like when I'm doing air checks randomly on episodes, it feels like more like a program that you could listen to going to work, doing your commute. And so I'm really enjoying myself producing this. Not that I wasn't before, but it's fun when you're doing something that you feel like is actually providing value to people. So you may have noticed they're longer. That means there's more commercial breaks as well. I'm filling those. I'm trying to make this worth my time. And it's not just worth my time, it's worth my kids and my wife's time that I'm away from them, ostensibly doing this for you, trying to make it worth our family's time. Not that I'm abandoning my kids, not that it's costing me, precious moments with them necessarily, but it is costing me time that sometimes I would otherwise be spending doing something fun with them. It's not that big of a deal. Don't write in saying, "Oh, Aaron, I don't want you to do this podcast." It's not doing that at all. I'm not trying to say that, but it has to be worth. My point is, it has to be worth my while to continue to do this. So, if you have listened to this and you're like, "Oh man, there's more ads," if you're an Apple Podcast subscriber, you can get the ad-free AM Update experience. It's just $5 a month. Just $5 a month. It takes away all of your ads, and you can just listen to the episode right through. No advertisements whatsoever. So if you would, if nothing else, if you just want to say a thank you to me for doing this each and every morning, except for when I'm puking my guts out, I'm sorry. I said we weren't going to talk about sickness anymore. If you want to just say thank you, go ahead and become an Apple Podcast subscriber if that's where you listen. And the vast majority of you, from what I can tell, are Apple Podcast subscribers. All right, coming up when we get back, we are going to be answering your questions We've got some fun questions this week. Not all serious business. Questions about DEI. Talking about favorite memories of childhood, favorite gifts I've ever received, and a very, very important question about McDonald's milkshakes and French fries. That's coming up.
لكم على الحروف الأبجدية يلا خلينا نبدأ
That is some skit from some ABC News show or ABC show back from like 20 years ago. What would Sesame Street look like in the Middle East? Well, apparently USAID spent $20 million of your taxpayer monies trying to figure out and actually produce the answer to that question. $20 million spent by USAID on a Sesame Street show in Iraq. Of course, what you just heard wasn't that show. From what I've heard, the show that USAID helped fund and produce actually was a complete and utter failure. What a surprise. What you just heard was a clip from some comedy show from ABC back several years ago. All right, finally, let's get to your questions on Ask or Tell Me Anything. You can ask me any question you want. Tell me any news story you think needs covering. Let's go to this. Toby McAvoy says, with DEI going away, what will June 2025 look like specifically at Target? Well, Target already started its pivot last summer. You remember that? Yeah, they downsized their Pride displays. Or right-sized them, depending on the market research, what they showed. I think it's even going to go even further away. I mean, they're not doing the Pride Parade in frickin' Minneapolis this year. Target. So DEI is not going away entirely. We had the story yesterday about Google. They're kind of doing the Homer Simpson gif, backing into the bushes, acting like they never had these arbitrary minority hiring guidelines. Costco, of course, is the notable exception. They are doubling down. Costco. So, DEI is not going away entirely. So June 2025, I think, is probably going to be one of the most muted rainbow-colored months that we've witnessed yet. That doesn't mean we're not going to know that it's Pride Month. We obviously will. They're not just going to go away by themselves. But I think right now is what you're seeing is 75%. A lot of corporations are just scared out of their minds that they're going to be sued for anti-white racism. I think 25% of what we're seeing are leadership at those corporations saying, holy cow, the genie that we let out of the bottle, way bigger, way nastier, way meaner than we thought. Let's try to put the genie back in the bottle. Whether or not they're going to be able to do that remains to be seen, but I really think that's what we're seeing now. They're just scared out of their minds of being sued. And they should be. I mean, DEI has always been racist. It always has been. There's no such thing as reverse racism. There's just racism. And that's what critical racist theory has always been. It's what it's always been. You are inherently less than. You are inherently disabled, really. You are inherently evil. In some cases, you are inherently unable to understand truths that other people are inherently able to understand because of the color of your skin. It just so happens that with DEI and critical racist theory, the color of your skin happens to be white. That is racism. There's no reverse racism. There's just racism. And that is overtly anti-white. So DEI isn't going away, but man, I think our side is winning. Let's go to Some Call Me Tim. What is your favorite memory of childhood? I was blessed with a really wonderful childhood. And anytime I'm asked what my favorite memory, I mean, there's so many favorite memories of childhood. But I just have to go with playing Army out in the windbreak. I mean, my parents own 23 acres in rural southern Iowa. Now, there's a lot of buildings that have been built up since I left home. So it doesn't feel quite as rural as it once did, but it's still 23 acres of pretty wide open spaces. And as a boy growing up, loved to play Army. We had the little rat-tat-tat-tat guns, and later on airsoft guns that me and my friends would just run all over the farm, pretending to shoot each other with. So probably something like that is just playing outside. Playing outside. We had a pond that was covered with, or that was surrounded by trees. That was always just an adventure, especially when you're a little guy. You know, you feel like you are in the Amazon rainforest when you walk down to the pond and just kind of explore. So probably playing outside. I know that's not a singular memory, but that's always what I think of when I'm asked a question like that. Caravan DLM says, what's your favorite gift you've ever received? I've told this story before about, 16 years old, Christmas time. Christmas is starting to lose its magic just a little bit. It's not like I didn't like Christmas or anything. It's just wasn't as magical as it is when you're a little boy or a boy. And all my siblings had gone to college. And I think it was the very first Christmas that it was just me and my mom and dad. And recurring theme here is that this is really hard skill. Maybe it's not a skill so much as it is a talent, but my mom always had an ability to buy gifts for her children that were simultaneously she knew would be useful, like every single day, would excite the kids, and would be somewhat cool or very cool. And I was 16 years old that Christmas. First Christmas was just me, my mom and dad, missing my siblings. And the magic of Christmas had kind of worn off. And my parents got me a guitar. Wonderful, wonderful Christmas gift. Probably the second one to that, same mold, was I think I was 10 or 11. And my parents for Christmas got me my first CD player, boombox. That was really cool too. My voice is starting to go out. Like I said, I think I'm coming down with the same thing that poor Ben has too. Let's do one more question. Somewhere in Kentucky, if you really enjoy McDonald's shake and fries, have you had Wendy's chocolate frosty and fries? I have. Yep. And it's probably even better than McDonald's shake and fries. Let's be honest. I don't really understand people who just dismiss outright dipping your French fries in a milkshake, especially a chocolate milkshake. Think of it this way. Have you ever had chocolate-dipped potato chips? Yes, chocolate and starches can go together. And sometimes they can go together really, really well. That's just what this is. Dipping your French fries into a milkshake is incredible. It's an amazing experience. And I recommend it for everyone. And if you don't enjoy it, or you think, even if you haven't had it before, you think that sounds disgusting, I am inherently distrustful of you. Here I stand. I can do no other. Man, I wanted to get to more. Questions. Actually, let's end with one more. This is less of a question, more of a shout out. And I think this is a good one to end on. James Haining says, Megan Basham deserves a shout out. The shepherds were for sale. Yeah. When it turns out, I can't remember the name of the organization, but it is Russell Moore, David French, and that Curtis Chang. They had some sort of organization, very subversive organization, marketed towards churches, how to navigate the Trump age when you're a Christian. Very subversive. It was just cultural Marxism warmed over, packaged for soft-headed, quote-unquote, Christians. Allegedly, that group was taking money from the USAID, Christianity Today, which is really Christianity Never, taking money from USAID. And Megan Basham, in her book, Shepherds for Sale, outlined this very phenomenon with oodles of other supposed Christian thought leaders, Christian pastors, taking NGO money, non-governmental organizations, monies, and totally selling out and capitulating to cultural Marxism. Now, the other reason Megan deserves a shout out is she revealed this week that she's been battling colorectal cancer. And so if you can remember, keep her in her family. She's got a whole family. She's been doing some amazing work, exposing some of the rot within the American church. So remember to keep her family and her in your prayers as she battles this cancer. As her boss, Jeremy Boring, at the Daily Wire said this week, knowing Megan, if I were cancer, I'd be scared out of my mind right now. So it's a good place to end it on. Keep Megan Basham in your prayers. And yes, she does deserve a shout out. She was proven right this week with some of the revelations coming out of USAID. Great episode, if I may say so myself. We'll be back at it again on Monday on the AM Update. Have a wonderful weekend.